approximately 30 days to complete. So we'll need to come back for sentencing no earlier than 30 days. When would the parties wish?
The jury found a defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged. When the court found Ksoo guilty, no one realized the jury might have just signed his death sentence. Just hours after he arrived at his new prison, insiders claimed things turned deadly. Apparently, KTA finally got their revenge. Let me break it down. When the hood comes to prison, there's talk right now that Ksoo's already been harmed in prison. And honestly, it wouldn't be a shock. The man's got enemies everywhere, and just about everyone's got a bone to pick with him. Ksoo got hit with that guilty verdict for first-degree murder in the 2020 shooting death of 23-year-old Charles Lil Buck McCormick Jr., and that conviction came with a mandatory life bid. No parole, no appeals that's going to stick, just a lifetime behind bars. For someone so young, a life sentence is a devastating blow, but it's only the beginning of Ksoo's troubles. The atmosphere surrounding his case reached fever pitch when his own father, Ksoo's dad, took the stand and testified against him. The betrayal felt like a sucker punch to the entire Jacksonville rap scene. Never, ever in the code of the streets do you snitch on your own family. It's the ultimate violation. Yet, here we were, witnessing it firsthand. The weight of that betrayal hangs heavy, amplified by the brutal reality of prison life. Let's be clear, prison isn't a place for rehabilitation. It's a pressure cooker, a breeding ground for violence, and a proving ground for loyalty. For someone like Ksoo, who built his reputation on being a ruthless and feared figure on the streets, prison is a nightmare scenario. It's a place where his enemies, who's been waiting for a chance to settle scores, are confined within the same walls. The psychological pressure alone is enough to break a man. Imagine the feeling of constantly looking over your shoulder, knowing that every inmate around you is potentially out to get you. You're stripped of your power, your status, your very identity. You're just another number, another pawn in a deadly game. The circumstances surrounding Ksoo's father's decision add another layer of complexity to the situation. What pushed a father to betray his own son in such a public and devastating way? His explanation was heartbreaking, revealing a man torn between his obligations to the streets and his desire to be present in the lives of his younger children. My 6-year-old son, he asked me to come to his football games, come take me fishing. He asked me, when I'm going to come see him. When he begging me, please come see me, Daddy. You want to teach me how to play the game, but don't know where I'm at. It's a desperate plea from a child who simply wants his father to be there for him, unaware of the dangerous world his parent inhabits. But it wasn't just about the kids. According to his own testimony, Ksoo's father was battling serious health issues, making his situation even more precarious. I have diabetic, high blood pressure. I suffer from congestive heart failure. The state, seemingly recognizing his vulnerability, leveraged his mortality to secure his cooperation, offering him a plea deal that would drastically reduce his sentence. He would testify against Ksoo and walk free in less than a year, a bittersweet victory overshadowed by the irreversible damage he inflicted on his family. The plea deal wasn't just a legal maneuver, it was a social death sentence. When questioned about the impact of his decision on his family relationships, Ksoo's dad's response was chilling. I really don't have no more relationship with my family besides. They completely cut you out. In the intricate web of street culture, family is everything. When you betray that bond, you sever your ties to your entire support system, your sense of belonging, and your very reason for being. This isn't just about a murder trial. It's a tragic illustration of the brutal realities of life in the streets. It's a story of betrayal, desperation, and the inescapable consequences of a life lived on the edge. The leaked footage of King Von's time behind bars serves as a stark reminder of the dangers that await Ksoo. Can you state your name and ID number? Devin Bennett, 2014-068-061. The video shows Vaughn, a man who has seen the inside of the system, in a tense interview with prison officials following an altercation. Can you tell me what happened? Vaughn's response, I got it, embodies the prison mentality. Avoid cooperation at all costs, even when you're the victim. Later footage reveals a desperate attempt to secure protective custody, a clear admission of the perilous situation he faced. Chris, hey, got a problem with gay people. So, because of your sexual orientation, you're requesting protective custody. Is that correct? Vaughn's admission, revealing his vulnerability, underscored the lengths to which individuals must go to survive within the prison system. Another clip shows him slipping out of his handcuffs and landing blows on his adversary.
Yeah, Tanika, the defense attorneys both argued to the jury that the prosecutor's evidence that they're going to be presenting to them in the future is a result of plea deals reached by others associated with this case. And they just urged the jury to keep that in mind as the trial goes on.
Showcasing the constant struggle for power and respect within those walls. The beef stemmed from a tattoo that disrespected Leprechaun Capone, revealing the long-lasting grudges that fester within the prison ecosystem. These incidents illustrate what Ksoo is walking into. Prison is a place where old beefs never die. Disrespect is remembered for years, and a wrong look or comment can lead to swift and deadly violence. For Ksoo, who built his reputation on disrespecting his ops and bragging about bodies, prison is a 24/7 danger zone. The Florida prison system, with its complex web of factions based on geography, race, and criminal affiliations, presents a uniquely challenging environment. Being an ATK member means being immediately classified by other inmates, who will view him either as an asset or a liability. The ongoing feud between ATK and rival factions has been linked to multiple murders since 2017, creating a network of grievances that can be activated anywhere, anytime. Furthermore, the allegations that Ksoo was mistreated in Duval County Jail, housed in the psych ward with mentally ill inmates, and denied proper communication with his legal team, paint a grim picture of the conditions he might face. If those reports are true, imagine how much worse things will become in a state prison, where guards have less oversight and inmates have more freedom to move around and handle their business. The psychological toll on Ksoo, coupled with the constant threat of violence, could prove devastating. The case of Casanova further highlights the volatile nature of prison life. During his time at Essex County Detention Center, Casanova engaged in violent confrontations with Ulysses Lugo, connected to his own gang. These confrontations escalated to the point where faces were slashed with razors, and inmates subsequently attacked Lugo, potentially on Casanova's orders. This incident underscores the idea that the lines between gang affiliations and prison violence become blurred, and loyalty can be a dangerous commodity. Casanova's refusal to cooperate with authorities, coupled with his vocal criticism of his own gang, made him a target within the prison system. The same principle applies to Ksoo, a visible symbol of defiance against the established order, especially when combined with a betrayal as profound as his father's testimony, makes him vulnerable to attacks from all sides. Ultimately, Ksoo's fate remains uncertain. But one thing is clear. Prison isn't a place of redemption. It's a breeding ground for violence, a proving ground for loyalty, and a potential death sentence for a man who built his life on the wrong side of the law. The world watches with a morbid fascination, bracing for the inevitable storm that is about to engulf him. The roar of the courtroom faded, replaced by a silence heavier than any sound. It wasn't just a verdict, it was a finality. Ksoo Robinson, the name echoing through Jacksonville, Florida, had been sentenced. Goodbye forever. The system had spoken, and the streets were watching. This wasn't just about one man's downfall. It was a stark reminder of how far a life could unravel, how loyalty could morph into a noose, and how the lines between performance and reality blurred into a deadly mix. Let's unpack this whole mess, man. Let's dive deep into the layers of this case, the pain, the betrayal, and the long shadow it casts. For years, Ksoo had been a figure, an icon, a name whispered with a mixture of fear and respect. He commanded attention. He built an image. But that image, that persona, crumbled under the weight of evidence, testimony, and the inescapable grip of the law. He walked into that courtroom thinking he could play the game, but the game played him. This was the end of a chapter, maybe the end of the story itself. Was it deserved? Was it inevitable? Let's break it down. The foundation of this whole saga lay in a feud, a war waged in diss tracks and street beef. The death of Willie Addison was the spark. It ignited a chain of events that led to this moment. His crew, they swore revenge, and revenge they sought. But in their pursuit of justice, did they cross a line? Did they become the very thing they were fighting against? This wasn't just about retaliation. It was about a cycle of violence, a tragic spiral that swallowed lives. The streets were full of young men, hungry for recognition, desperate to prove their worth. But where does the thirst for respect end and the descent into darkness begin? The planning was meticulous, chillingly so. Dominique Barner, a man caught in the crosshairs, flipped, spilling all the details. Addresses looked up online, surveillance staked out. The cold calculation of it all was unsettling. It wasn't just about pulling a trigger. It was about orchestrating a hit, a performance designed to send a message. It was a show of force, meant to intimidate, to control. But in the end, it backfired. The system caught up, and the spotlight turned on them. But let's talk about the defense.
During opening statements, both Robinson and Whitaker's attorneys alluded that the state's evidence in this case came as a result of plea deals.
We're gonna learn that Blue, this ain't his first time cooperating with law enforcement. He's done that before, so he has experience. He knows that when he is in trouble and he is caught, if I say what the government wants to hear, I get out. He's done it before, and he's going to do it again in this courtroom.
What you're going to learn is that Dominique Barner came in on January 15th, and he told just enough about himself to get him off his case. So let him go.
During the prosecution's opening statements, Assistant State...
They tried to paint a picture of innocence, of a young man caught up in something bigger than himself. They argued about the use of rap lyrics as evidence, questioning the validity of using artistic expression to condemn someone. It's a valid point, man. When does creativity become a crime? When does a persona become a conviction? But the jury didn't buy it. They saw the evidence, they heard the testimony, and they reached a verdict. And that's where the real complexity kicks in. Dominique Barner, the man who sang like a bird, a man with his own demons, his own motivations. He was looking for a way out, a chance to minimize his own punishment. He traded information for leniency, betraying his own crew in the process. Was he a hero or a rat? The jury didn't have to decide, but the streets certainly did. The debate raged. Could you trust a man who would betray his own? The loyalty code is everything in that world. Breaking it comes with a heavy price. The prosecution, they played their hand perfectly. They built a case brick by brick, presenting irrefutable evidence, lining up witnesses, and dismantling the defense's arguments. They understood the streets, they understood the game, and they played it with ruthless efficiency. It was a masterclass in legal strategy. It wasn't just about punishing a criminal. It was about sending a message. It was about establishing order. And let's be real, the family tree alone was a spectacle. The relationships, the allegiances, the betrayals. It was a tangled web of connections, a complex network of individuals intertwined by fate and circumstance. The jury needed a roadmap to navigate the chaos. They needed to understand the dynamics at play. It was a testament to the intricate social fabric that underpinned the violence. It was a community, but a fractured one, riddled with mistrust and animosity. Now the sentencing. Mandatory life. A lifetime behind bars. It's a harsh reality. A finality. But was it just? Did it serve a greater purpose? Did it deter others from following the same path? Or did it simply perpetuate the cycle of violence, creating another generation of resentment and anger? These are the questions that linger in the air, unanswered, unresolved. This wasn't just about locking up one man. It was about addressing the underlying issues that contributed to his downfall. Poverty, lack of opportunity, the allure of quick money and easy respect. But what about the psychological impact? Imagine being Ksoo, knowing your life is over. The streets you ruled, the influence you wielded, all gone. Reduced to a number, a statistic, a cautionary tale. It's a crushing blow, a soul-crushing realization. The weight of your actions, the consequences of your choices, finally catching up. The image, the persona, the legend, all extinguished. And the ripple effect, man. The families torn apart. The communities shattered. The young men looking up to Ksoo, now faced with the harsh reality of his fate. The message, even the untouchable fall. It's a sobering reminder that no one is above the law. but it also raises uncomfortable questions about the system itself. Does it truly offer a path to redemption? Or does it simply perpetuate a cycle of punishment and despair? The prosecution's statement was powerful, a message to the streets. It's not a game. There are consequences. A bold declaration of authority. But what about the underlying problems? The root causes? Addressing those issues requires more than just arrests and convictions. It requires a commitment to social reform, economic opportunity, and community healing. The use of rap lyrics as evidence? That's where things get tricky. The line between performance and reality is blurred in that world. These artists, they're creating characters, telling stories, exaggerating for effect. But when those lyrics align with criminal activity, can they be used against them? Is it fair to punish someone for their artistic expression? The debate will continue. It's a complex issue with no easy answers. The potential appeals, they're inevitable. There's always a chance for a legal challenge, a chance to overturn the verdict. Ineffective assistance of counsel, prosecutorial misconduct. These are the grounds that could be raised. But the odds are stacked against them. The system is designed to uphold the verdict, to maintain order. And then there's the shadow of the imprisoned. Ksoo locked up, stripped of his freedom, his influence, his power. He's now just another inmate, vulnerable to the dangers of prison life. He's a target. The rumors of violence, the threat of retaliation, these are the realities of his new existence. It's a dark and dangerous world, a world where survival depends on strength and cunning. The legacy. What will Ksoo be remembered for? The music, the influence, the notoriety, or the downfall, the tragedy? It's a complex and multifaceted image.
Trial for the 2020 murder of Charles McCormick Jr. is officially underway. Hakeem Robinson, better known as Ksoo, and Leroy Whitaker are being tried together with separate juries. Robinson is charged with first-degree murder as a criminal gang member, and Whitaker is charged with first-degree murder as a criminal gang member, burglary with assault or battery, and home invasion robbery. Both Robinson and Whitaker are alleged to be part of the ATK gang. Investigators allege that Robinson and Whitaker sought to kill McCormick Jr. because he made a rap song that dissed the late rapper Willie Addison, who is also Robinson's half-brother.
One that will be debated and analyzed for years to come. It's a cautionary tale of ambition, betrayal, and the consequences of choices. But let's not forget the young men watching, the ones hungry for respect, the ones tempted by the allure of the streets. They need guidance. They need opportunities. They need a way out. This ISN's about punishing them. It's about empowering them. It's about showing them that there's another way, a better way. And that's the real challenge. Not just locking up the perpetrators of violence, but addressing the root causes that drive them. This sentencing wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning of a long and difficult road to healing, to reconciliation, to a future where young men don't feel the need to seek validation through violence. The game had changed, and forever. More. It wasn't just about the verdict, the gavel slamming down, the cameras flashing. It was about what that moment meant. It was about the collective exhale of a community holding its breath for far too long. The faces in the gallery weren't just witnessing justice. They were searching for hope. Because let's be real, hope felt pretty scarce around here. This wasn't a win for the system. It was a win for the kids growing up in the shadow of violence, the ones who felt like they had no other choice, no other way to be seen. It was a win for the parents whose hearts were constantly aching, terrified for their children's futures. We're talking about a generation raised on the soundtrack of sirens and the whispers of despair. A generation where proving yourself meant showing your toughness, your willingness to fight, to dominate. But who benefits from that? Nobody. It just perpetuates the cycle. Think about it. How many times have we heard the same story? Young man, feeling lost, feeling powerless, seeking validation in the wrong places, turning to violence because it's the only way he knows how to feel something. Anger, respect, even a twisted sense of belonging. It's a trap, right? A self-made prison built on pain and insecurity. And breaking free? That's the hardest thing in the world. This sentencing, it wasn't about punishment alone. Punishing someone for being a product of their environment doesn't solve anything. It doesn't heal the wounds. It doesn't address the real problem. It just puts a Band-Aid on a gaping wound and hopes it's okay. We need more than that. We need to understand why these young men feel compelled to choose this path. We need to peel back the layers of trauma, of neglect, of systemic failure, and shine a light on the darkness. This isn't about excusing their actions. Violence is never the answer. It's about recognizing that these are complex issues with complex roots. They're not just bad people doing bad things. They're hurting people who have been hurt, desperately searching for a way out of the darkness. And it's our responsibility as a community, to offer them that way out. Think about the resources that went into this case, the legal battles, the court appearances. Imagine what that money could have done if it had been invested in early intervention programs, in after-school activities, in mentorship opportunities for at-risk youth. What if those kids had been given a real chance, a real opportunity to dream, to aspire, to build a future for themselves? Would they still have felt the need to resort to violence? Maybe not. Maybe, just maybe, things would have turned out different. And that's the challenge. It's not about locking people up and throwing away the key. It's about creating a system that prevents these situations from happening in the first place. It's about empowering young men to find their own paths to success and fulfillment, paths that don't involve violence and despair. It's about showing them that there's another way, a better way, a way where they can be seen, heard, and valued for who they are, not for what they're willing to do to prove themselves. This wasn't just about Ksoo. It was about every young man growing up in communities like ours, feeling lost, feeling forgotten, feeling like they have no other choice. It was a message to them. You are not alone. We see you. We hear you. And we're here to help you find a better way. The echoes of the sentence faded, but the conversation, the real conversation, was just beginning. It wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The courtroom emptied, the cameras packed up, but the work remained. The true work. The work of healing, of rebuilding, of creating a future where young men don't feel the need to seek validation through violence. A future where every child has the opportunity to thrive, to reach their full potential, to become the best version of themselves. And that's a future worth fighting for. The community, initially relieved, now shifted into a reflective mood. The initial euphoria waned, replaced by a quiet determination, because they knew, deep down, that this was just one step in a much longer journey. A journey that would require courage, compassion.
Jr, better known as Lil Buck, was shot and killed in 2020 in what investigators believe was a gang-related attack right outside of an Arlington shopping center. Action News Jack's Madison Foglio is live outside of the Duval County Courthouse, and the opening statements just wrapped up. In Madison, the defense attorneys for both men showed similar strategies, you noticed.
And a willingness to challenge the status quo. They started to talk about the schools, underfunded, overcrowded, lacking the resources to provide the support that these kids desperately needed. They talked about the lack of job opportunities, the cycle of poverty, the feeling that the system was stacked against them. It was a tough conversation, a painful conversation, but it was a necessary conversation. Someone mentioned the mentorship programs. They were there, but were they reaching the right kids? Were they making a real difference? Or were they just a feel-good initiative that didn't address the underlying issues? Tough questions, but they needed to be asked. Then there were the families, the parents who were struggling to make ends meet, the single mothers working multiple jobs, the fathers who felt powerless to protect their children. They needed support too. They needed resources. They needed guidance. They needed to know that they weren't alone. The conversation spread beyond the courtroom, spilling out into the streets, into the community centers, into the homes of ordinary people who were determined to make a difference. They started organizing. They started advocating. They started demanding change. They knew that this wasn't going to be easy. They knew that there would be setbacks. There would be resistance. There would be those who would try to maintain the status quo. But they were undeterred. They had seen firsthand the devastating impact of violence, and they were committed to creating a better future for their children. Because this wasn't just about Ksoo. It was about all the Ksoos out there, the young men who felt lost, forgotten, and without hope. It was about creating a community where every child felt seen, heard, and valued. This was a turning point, a moment of reckoning, a chance to do things differently. A chance to create a future where young men didn't feel the need to seek validation through violence. And that was the real challenge. Not just locking up the perpetrators of violence, but addressing the root causes that drive them. It's about understanding the trauma, the neglect, the systemic failures that lead these young men down a destructive path. It's about investing in early intervention programs, in after-school activities, in mentorship opportunities. It's about creating a system that supports families, that provides opportunities for education and employment, that fosters a sense of community and belonging. It's about creating a culture of empathy and understanding, where young men feel safe to express their pain, their frustration, their anger, without resorting to violence. A culture where they are seen as individuals with potential, rather than as statistics or stereotypes. This sentencing wasn't just an ending, it was a beginning of a long and difficult road to healing, to reconciliation, to a future where young men don't feel the need to seek validation through violence. The old ways weren't working. The system, designed to punish, had failed to prevent. It had perpetuated the cycle, creating more victims, more perpetrators, more despair. It was time for a new approach, an approach that focused on prevention, on healing, on empowerment. This wasn't about letting anyone off the hook. Accountability was essential. Justice needed to be served. But justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about restoring balance, about repairing harm, about creating a more equitable and just society. And that required a willingness to look beyond the surface, to dig deeper, to confront uncomfortable truths. It required a willingness to challenge the assumptions, the biases, the prejudices that had contributed to the problem. The journey wouldn't be easy. There would be resistance, there would be setbacks, there would be moments of doubt. But the community was determined to persevere. They had seen the devastation of violence firsthand, and they were committed to creating a better future for their children. They began to envision a community where every child felt safe, supported, and empowered. A community where young men felt valued for who they were, not for what they did. A community where violence was replaced by hope, fear by compassion, and despair by opportunity. The game had changed, and forever. It wasn't about simply reacting to violence. It was about preventing it from happening in the first place. It was about creating a future where every child had the chance to reach their full potential, to live a life of purpose and meaning. It was a bold vision, a challenging vision, but it was a vision worth fighting for. And the community was ready to embrace the challenge, to work together, to build a better future, one step at a time. This wasn't just a sentence, it was a catalyst, a chance to rewrite the narrative, to redefine the future, a chance to create a community where hope could finally take root and flourish. It was a bold vision, a challenging vision, but it was a vision worth fighting for. And the community was ready to embrace the challenge, to work together, to build a better future, one step at a time.
So, officer, there's CAD notes in this case, right? Call action detail notes.
Yes.
You've collected those, you've reviewed those.
Yes.
And your colleagues, as they were under the stress of the moment, were calling out over the radio the height and the weight of the person that they saw, right?
Yes.
And it wasn't just one. It wasn't just Officer Collins. There was another officer, Graham, right?
I vaguely remember, yes.
They both gave descriptions of the person that them as seasoned officers saw with their own eyes, right?
Yes.
So, understanding that we may have a recording, we could have had photographs just like this for this jury to see his exact size on that day.
Correct.
But you chose not to take photos.
With respect to Dominic Barner, the tattoos that he had at that date and time were the reason he was photographed.
Isn't the first photo with him with a shirt on?
Yes, they do overall photos.